Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Blue Otter League Platinum Division for week number 7 of competition. We're jumping into the draft between Bloom Gaming Lotus and Team Cosmic Genesis for game number 1. And there's a lot at stake here, particularly for Team Cosmic Genesis, trying to fight for that middle of the pack spot so they can continue their run into playoffs.
Yeah, they're sitting there right at the bottom. They don't have a lot of running room left, especially considering that this is the last week. They are right above going ghost here, but with just 5 points separating these two teams, they could easily be hopped over. And with Eclipsing Tides, Half Moon, and Average Joe's both sitting 3 points above this Cosmic Genesis squad, anything could happen here. Cosmic Genesis could find themselves relegated out of the playoffs. They could find themselves with fairly good seeding if everything goes their way. But first, they gotta beat this Bloom Lotus squad that has only lost to Dorado Mew.
And that's going to definitely be tough. However, there are those dynamics in the late season where sometimes teams, if they know they cannot get to the very top of the standings, but are in for playoffs, may just have a little bit of an off week here. So I'm interested to see how Bloom Gaming Lotus is going to navigate the draft and this round. If game number 1 goes in favor of Team Cosmic Genesis, Bloom Gaming might just let them have this, keep them in the running for the playoff slot, and then they're really just looking to scale up later on in the season. But we're gonna have to leave that speculation by the wayside because we have Tristana to start us off on that B1.
Yeah, and this is a very interesting targeted early draft from Bloom. Not only have they banned 3 ADCs, or at least bot lane primarily champions, they're taking another off the list. And yes, we've seen a lot more Tristana in the mid lane, but she's still pretty viable in that ADC role. So this pinches the pool of Genesis a bit, and they're not going to waste any time picking up this Jinx. They want at least something down there in the bot lane for Archer here.
Yep, and the Jinx is going to be grabbed alongside a Jarvan consideration. Kind of surprised they don't go for it. Instead, they're actually going to lock in a Blitzcrank, which is very weird to see,
Ooh.
especially given the fact that Tristana has the ability to just counter this champion.
Yeah, and I mean, there is still fairly good odds that Tristana is going to go into the mid lane here. My bigger concern is it's going to be hard for Jinx to pump out the damage that Blitzcrank really needs to support it in the early
Mhm.
game. Yeah, she's got the Flame Chomper, she's going to be able to really CC chain well, but early game with just a couple of items, or when you have components, Pow Pow doesn't do much damage. Jinx just doesn't have a lot in the tank until she gets that first pop off. So I'm worried that this champion is not going to have nearly the effect they want it to.
Bloom Gaming Lotus going to grab that Jarvan instead, and alongside that, they're going to lock in the Braum just to ensure that that bot lane remains stable even in the face of a Blitzcrank. Honestly, if I were Bloom Gaming Lotus, I think that you're kind of kicking yourselves for banning out that Ziggs. You may have thought of getting that alongside the Tristana could be a fantastic way forward for the team into the likes of the Blitzcrank. But we're gonna have to see how they're gonna shape up that bot lane during the second phase as Poppy rounds out our first 3 selections on either side.
Yeah, give credit to the Poppy pick here. You have 3 movement ability champions on Bloom squad already, so that W is going to do a lot of zone control here if Bloom doesn't play around it. It also is a great flex because you can move it between the top and the jungle fairly freely here, so it doesn't give Bloom a whole lot of idea of what they need to ban out here. I think they'll just focus on mid laners, play it safe, try to make it easier for Jacobry here.
All right. Well, in the second ban phase, we got the Syndra denied by Team Cosmic Genesis. Bloom Gaming Lotus going to knock out that Veigar. And as we're moving deeper into this draft, I'm really liking how these two teams are shaping up, with the exception of there just being such high variance for this Blitzcrank. I really do think that there is a chance that this champion can pop off, but Team Cosmic Genesis is firmly saying to their support, hey, you're going to be put into the skill matchup. Let's see if you're actually going to be able to take it to one of the best teams in the entirety of the BOL Plat division. And Cloudberry's no slouch. I imagine that they're going to buy a lot of space on this Braum. That means Blitzcrank's probably going to have to look for roams in order to have a spike in the early game.
Yeah, I really feel like I would have liked to have seen another hook champ here. Yes, Blitzcrank has the fairly unique over the walls. You'd have to go with a Thresh or Pike to counteract that, whereas something like a Nautilus doesn't really have that ability because it gets countered by walls. But Blitzcrank just doesn't have utility. If it falls behind, if you miss the rocket grab, you have nothing left. At least Pike still has a stun. At least Nautilus still has their area control. at least Thresh is, well, they're Thresh. You get the Lantern, you get the Flay, you get so much out of it that I agree. I think they've pigeonholed themselves a little bit into putting a lot of weight on XMB here.
And now we got Kane coming out for Team Cosmic Genesis on the R4. This is not a pick that we get to see a lot of in competitive and coordinated play. It is something that can be shut down really well. But I do think that the slipperiness that comes from this champion, the discord that it could cause, may actually work really well for some super aggressive early games that do play upon the Blitzcrank. I don't want to keep hitting this champion over and over again, but I do think that this is an angle forward. Team Cosmic Genesis is just going to play super hard off of Rogue Flicks and try to get this Kane into a position where, yeah, every single time you do press that Q button on Blitzcrank, you get a yoink over the wall. Someone is going to be able to do the damage, be that the Jinx or be that now your jungler. Bloom Gaming Lotus in kind going to continue to respect some of these aggressive selections out of Team Cosmic Genesis, give themselves the Sivir, and now looking even deeper into the late game, they also get the Gwen.
I'm very okay with this if I'm Bloom, but I'm also surprised about the misstep with the Kane. That is Rogue Flix's most played champion by a factor of 4. 109 games on the Kane, next closest is J4 with 28. So there's really no reason to not just put a safety ban in round 2 just to make sure that that doesn't get on the board. But Sivir, very nice counter into Blitzcrank, makes it even harder for XMB to do what they want to do. Gwen in the late game should be able to cut through this Poppy, will have a ton of split pushing pressure, and really be able to augment what the Tristana can do in groups as well. It feels like Bloom has a very well-rounded comp, and well, Corki's a nice champion that scales very well. I'm worried that it's going to get bullied out of lane very hard by this Tristana and not going to be put in a position to succeed.
That being said, Team Cosmic Genesis have done a good job getting a match that I think really will skill test Bloom Gaming Lotus. Their champions are such that they will win a poke war if people are just standing around mid lane waiting to see whether or not people want to pull the trigger, go for a drag, go for a baron, something like that. And with the Blitzcrank there, able to kind of fish for Qs, I think that Bloom Gaming Lotus could be put into a lot of difficult situations, particularly if they slip too far behind in the early game where you start seeing Tristana or Jarvan going in a little bit too early without the assistance of their team, while they get worn down by their artillery fire from Corki and Jinx, and maybe Team Cosmic Genesis will come out victorious because of that. Poppy, therefore, going to be a crucial player in these grouped fights, being able to split teams, use that W after Jarvan commits or something like that to prevent Tristana from jumping over and really getting into the backline.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you said, the positioning is going to be the name of the game here because Genesis has so many opportunities to cut off Bloom, either with the Poppy or with the Kane throwing themselves into the backline. Because you have to expect it to be red Kane here. You need the additional disruption. You need the extra tankiness on the front line to augment the Corki and Jinx. So it feels like the natural decision for the Kane to be coming through those walls, trying to disrupt Sivir and Tristana in the backside. And if they can achieve that, in the late game with Jinx and Corki, they'll have enough damage to cut through very well. It just comes down to Bloom has won all of the games that they have played except for Dorado so far because of skill. It's not like this team is weak, so I'm very curious to see if they do fall victim to what TC Genesis wants to do here, or if they just play at a level that it does not come to pass.
And that's always kind of the unfortunate thing with some of these really elegant drafts that you see from one side or the other. Sometimes it just matters what happens when you get out onto the rift. There's a reason why so many coaches say that draft is their favorite part of the game. It is the thing that they have the most 1v1 control over when you compare coach versus coach. But now we are going to be leaving it up to the wild gods of the rift, and nothing that is out of the ordinary that happens in the BOL implies to me that this is going to be a total stomp for BGL. I mean, we've seen throw after throw throughout various different divisions. Team Cosmic Genesis are playing within a league that I think has a high pedigree for upsets to occur. But Bloom Gaming Lotus is near the very top of the field. I think is one of the teams that may have proven themselves above that kind of tomfoolery, those kinds of shenanigans. And perhaps this will be that stopping block for TCG to actually find themselves moving into playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it is such a close race in the Ixtal division that if Genesis picks up one game and then loses two, they could still find their way in here. So it's a very, very tight race. And as long as they put up a good showing and do as much as they can here. And I think they've done that with this draft. They've done everything possible here. As long as they put up a good showing, I think they can walk away with their heads held high.
Yep, something to keep an eye out for. I do think that TCG just need to really show out here in game number one. Make a statement, be this either the start of a new chapter or the end of their time here in the BOL Platinum Division for the season. This should be an exciting game. Now, we have everybody locked in. We are waiting for our Lotus to get all prepped up, and we are ready to get out onto the Rift. Before we get there, though, a brief shout out to one of our sponsors. We got Coachify GG in the house. One of the best platforms in general for people who are either seeking out coaches or searching to become a coach. This is a place that can connect you with clients and clients to connect with coaches who are willing to work with people at all skill levels to level up in a variety of different esports. They are a fantastic support here within the amateur League of Legends scene. Please go check them out. Once again, it's coachify.gg. Oz, you got anything to say before we throw it over?
No, I think you've covered everything. Go ahead, use that link if you'd like to see it in Twitch chat. It's !Coachify. But outside of that, I think it's time for us to buckle in, wait out the spectator delay, and bring in this last match to Twitch chat.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the BOL Platinum Division. This is week number 7 of competition. I believe the last regular week of competition before we move into playoffs. And Bloom Gaming Lotus on blue side is taking on Team Cosmic Genesis, who really need this dub to stay in that middle of the pack to have a shot at playoffs. Now, we do see Blue Squad moving as a group through this top lane, trying to stack, maybe trying to outdo the Blitzcrank at their own game. And they've already found Grim to fire, and I don't think that they realize what's going on. So no flash gonna be burnt. Easy first blood picked up. Gonna be staying in the top lane. Zyke is the one getting that, and that is a very good start for BGL, who are looking to scale that champion up.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That puts this Gwen in a great position. Can go back now, buy a little bit more in terms of items, get to those scaling breakpoints a little bit sooner, and it's going to make Grimm scared. They're not going to try and punish Zyke as much for the early weakness, pardon me, of that Gwen. So this should make this top lane very easy and give Bloom a nice free power point here moving towards the middle half of this game.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we apparently had some hardware difficulties with Grim to Fire, and that is why we saw absolutely no response out of them when they were getting run down. Well, not even run down, that implies that they were moving at all, but they were getting cleaned up in the top lane. They're trying to swap mice, but at the end of the day, that is how BOL runs, you know? If you have a mistake, you got to throw it into a pause. If you are going to ego it like that, you are probably going to lose your privilege of being able to stop those crazy things from happening. So BGL off to kind of a free start here. Let's see whether or not Team Cosmic Genesis can bring it back.
Yeah, they do have plenty of time though. This is a fairly scaling team outside of the early pressure that Jacoby's is going to be able to put down on this Tristana, and it is already doing so. Jack taking about half their health in a single trade there. But Scoobs and Zyke, they're going to want to scale up. They're going to want to take this game slow. So outside of this mid lane, unless Loveless gets out on the map, we won't have a lot of energy from Bloom until about the 15-20 minute mark. So that's time for Genesis to make use of this Kayn, make use of the Poppy, and try to get something going on the map, try and balance it out. They just have to be a little bit more proactive and maybe hit a hook.
Now, the burden is that they have to be more proactive than a Jarvan, who's going to really be shoring up some of these slower matches across a lot of BGL side. And I'm a little bit worried that Rogueflix may go a bit too deep in some of these situations because Bloom Gaming Lotus are going to be pushed in, especially in these sides. As long as Groom Fire doesn't fall too far behind off of that early kill onto the Gwen, we could be in a situation where Lovelace is just going to have easy wraparounds. They're going to be able to call out the likes of these immobile champions, such as Blitzcrank or the Jinx, and then all of a sudden now you have multiple losing lanes to a team that does have incredible scaling everywhere on the map. So that is something to keep an eye out on.
Yeah, we do have to note though that right now, Rogueflix is ahead on the rotation, has a full camp up on Loveless, and will be able to secure at the very least this first contested Scuttle Crab, and likely both of them, which will put them in great shape here, ahead of Loveless, ahead on tempo, and perhaps get some good ganks off here while the J4 is still trying to rotate through.
Well, there's a chance that we get some action already. A lot of cheating from this mid lane towards the enemy Kayn. So Bloom Gaming Lotus clearly wants to contest something. And with the back that we're seeing, Kayn is actually going to cross over the wall, set up for something against Cloudberry after we see XMB land a hook. But so far, things are looking to be countered beautifully by Loveless, going in with the flag and drag, getting a double knockup. Blitzcrank going to be the first to fall. Rogueflix, though, has the ability to run down their fellow jungler. Archer gets the kill, and that means that the resets from the Stinks are going to come out. Scoob's trying to kite this, will get a double kill. Archer unable to land a zap onto Cloudberry, who's going to start shielding up yet again. And the bot lane of BGL will walk this out, a 2-for-1 in favor of blue team.
Yeah, and that was an expensive play for the side of Genesis as well. All 4 summoner spells in the bot lane are down. Rogueflix no longer has the flash. Meanwhile, Scoob's still sitting on their flash. So when Rogueflix tries to come back, tries to regank again, the Sivir is going to be perfectly safe. That's not going to work again. And Sivir got 2 kills compared to Jinx only getting 1. If the Get Excited had allowed him to pick off Cloudberry and then turn their attention fully onto Scoobs, that could have been huge for Genesis, but they just didn't quite have the numbers. And we talked about that in Champ Select, that Jinx early on just really doesn't have the capacity to be competitive in the way that Blitzcrank wants to be.
And now Jacobri is really using this early game power spike from the mid lane to pick up a kill onto Kane. Now Loveless is going to deal with Jack, who did manage to clean up that 2v2. Looks like things ultimately are going to end as pretty even, as this Corki walking away with the kill could be a power point for TCG.
Yeah, feels bad for Loveless there. Had to use the flag and drag early on in that fight to knock up Rogueflix. So didn't have it to get over the wall, follow Jacobri. Had to watch their mid lane ADC die. But still, the Tristana with an early kill will get to that Noon Quiver, and that's another big power point. Means that she'll be able to continue bullying this Corki. Yeah, he does have the barrage now, but still will not feel nearly as powerful until he gets 1-2 items. They have to make use of this early pressure to let this Tristana get on the map.
And BGL has plenty of opportunities with which to do so. I think that if Tristana continues to push out this Corki, there's a good chance they just roam down, help take this dragon. Also, Rift Herald going to be a crucial feature of this game. Tristana's
Absolutely.
tower busting power does mean that BGL will probably try to prioritize that objective. But I will say one place on the map where we aren't seeing as much perma push is top. Zyke wants to keep the wave relatively close to their side. That's actually where Gwen wants it to be for her own safety. Grun to Fire now cresting over level 6 is going to be traded on pretty heavily, though. So I do think if push comes to shove, there is a good chance that this Poppy could be pushed out in time for Shelly to be taken.
Yeah, Zyke already has an incredible amount of threat in this lane. I mean, up 22 CS. Some of that is going to be reclaimed here with this wave, but still, Grim being forced to play so passively because of that early lost death is just allowing Zyke to farm up freely, to get aggressive. And look at this, even putting down wards very deep. You shouldn't have a Gwen able to do that at 7 minutes. That's absolutely apocalyptic in the top lane here.
Jacobri going to connect here into the mid lane versus Jack, but Roadflix is on a call. Looks like Buster Shot will be forced out early because of the Kane's approach, and BGL are able to just walk away from that one. They keep the flash on Tristana. I think you're happy to burn that cooldown any day of the week.
Oh, absolutely. I don't even think it was needed to be popped because the explosive charge had gone off. I think that was Jacobri getting a little bit aggressive, trying to put more damage down onto Jack so that they could look for a play like this. Doesn't quite work out. The explosive charge leaves Jack with what looks to be maybe about 50 health, but still, interesting choice there from Jacobri to stay hyper aggressive and really try and get all the damage he can out of every single moment.
Well, especially with a more carry-oriented jungler, this is kind of what happens. You can depress a single play, you can put Jacobri a little bit back, but eventually you're going to have to leave that lane, try to get Jack to fend for themselves, and right now the Corki is struggling to do so. We do have a 1v1 duel between Loveless and Roadflix in the top lane. Currently, Loveless has the Cataclysm available, is level 6, elects to not follow over the wall as there is Grim to Fire right there. Looks like things are going to eventually calm down, and that is going to be Jarvan walking out unscathed.
Yeah, that was the safe play there, but I'm a little bit surprised that Loveless didn't go ahead and pull the trigger. Zyke was rotating over, has the needlework available, and with the full level and ultimate advantage over Rogueflix, they definitely had a window to try and force there. I think they could have gotten 2 for nothing if they had decided to go aggressive, but they're going to rely on the scaling. They're going to let this game go long, and can't fault them for that.
It's definitely hyper aggressive to do that. I think with Jarvan, often you do want to be hyper aggressive, but that coin flip could just throw away any chance you have at autonomy in the early game, because if the Gwen dies and the Jarvan dies, this is going to be Rift Herald to Team Cosmic Genesis. This is a possible cross map as they will try to translate their newfound pressure in gold over to also get the dragon as well. And all of a sudden, BGL are going to be in a much worse space than where they currently are, up a surprising amount of gold here at around the 10-minute mark. Team Cosmic Genesis needs to find a new angle.
Yeah, they really haven't found anything though. Rogueflix has tried the bot lane. Yeah, they got a kill, but they lost 2 in exchange. Tried the mid lane, immediately got buster shotted away, couldn't find a thing. It existed in the top side, and Loveless has been able to roam completely freely through that top side. They are going to put 4 members down here and will pick up that early cloud, but it's at the cost of Rift Herald. It's at the cost of now looking to get this Tristana likely very far ahead, as she'll just hop out here perfectly fine.
That being said, Jack going forward, has the ability to set up quite a bit of burst damage if a hook lands like that one. Loveless just going to sacrifice themselves by using the Cataclysm, locking up XMB, but now Cloudberry finds themselves deep in enemy territory. Jacoby's trying to use their aggro to disengage. It looks like Braum will be able to walk this out. A 1-for-0 though in favor of Team Cosmic Genesis buys them a window of time.
Yeah, that does buy plenty of space, and importantly, it takes the Herald off the map here for a few seconds, lets them reset after their Drake, get back into position to defend it wherever Loveless decides to drop it. So that's a big win here, and a nice pick by XMB, finally landing a hook that actually ends up in their favor.
Jacoby going right back at it, though, trying to deal with Jack, who eventually will just have to lose that game of chicken. They Valkyrie away, but it's too little, too late. Flash burn doesn't matter. Tristana going to be able to pick up a solo Bolo, deleting the early priority that TCG got because of that take onto the Jarvan, and now Zyke top lane gets a solo kill of their own. XMB shows up too late to do anything about this Rift Herald drop, and yeah, BGL just get back on top in a very, very clear show of dominance.
Yeah, they do lose a bit of the potential damage of that Herald charge thanks to the I-Beam pop, but still, that's 4 plates down in a matter of seconds. Jacoby now has a ton of gold in pocket. Loveless making use of that Herald quite well despite the early death. And that's just very, very questionable mispositioning by Jack. You have to respect that Jacoby, with the Kraken Slayer, is going to do more damage than you, is going to be a kill threat, even with just one rotation. And if you wait to flash Valkyrie away until after the Buster Shot comes out, it's already too late.
Well, TCG, I think, have one fight left in them before this game truly becomes over just from early game. And it looks like Loveless wants to start amping up the pressure, maybe try to find a fight of that kind. But Jack is here going to be able to imbalance the numbers in favor of TCG. And yet again, the Jarvan goes too far forward, trying to make the most of their early game priority. And they're getting punished for doing so. That is an angle back into this for Team Cosmic Genesis. And BGL now, once again, find themselves without their jungler.
Yeah, that's something that I've been noticing here with Loveless. It's very interesting how this jungler likes to use their Flag and Drag, because they use it very early in fights, and often before really considering the outcome that they're going for. So we've seen now more times than I care to count, Loveless going in, using that Flag and Drag aggressively, not getting what they want out of it, and then being forced to sit there and wait for it to come back up, or die because they don't have it. If Loveless was a little bit more intentional with this spell combo, I really think this Jarvan would likely have no deaths and would likely have at least 4 or 5 more assists, because they've come very close in a few fights to making a huge difference.
Regardless, this is still a big advantage for BGL overall. The gold lead is not implying an only 2-kill gap between these two teams. But BGL, for being a scaling team, has outlaned Team Cosmic Genesis so consistently throughout this game. And unfortunately, this could be a pain point throughout the rest of the series. This is something that is very hard to alleviate in the course of a best of 3. If these players are simply better, Team Cosmic Genesis are going to have to always feel this burn early. And I don't really know what they can do to try to deal with that fact.
You might have to just consider drafting a completely different style of team. You might draft something a little bit more early game focused. Something other than the Corki, other than the Jinx, other than the Kayn. These champions that really want to hit specific breakpoints before they can turn on. That way you can counteract the early game pressure a little bit more effectively. But that might just not be the style that Genesis is comfortable with, as Scoob's just running down Archered here. This is a dead Jinx.
Well, that kill onto Scoobs basically seals the deal. BGL has won all 3 lanes to varying degrees of impact, and we're just going to have to see how Team Cosmic Genesis leverage, like what you're talking about, the late game against a team that unfortunately is still going to hang with them until probably around the 40-minute mark.
I'd say even after that, Nyarko, yeah, the Jarvan falls off because he won't have any damage after he gets to those breakpoints, but Gwen only gets stronger. Sivir at 6 items is, bar none in my opinion, the most terrifying ADC in the game. I mean, there's an argument to be made for Jinx, but Sivir is absolutely up there. Tristana transitions to a completely different style of ADC with all of the additional range that Draw Bead grants. I don't think that 40 minutes waiting for this game full Korean style is going to be a win con for Genesis.
I also don't think we're getting to a 40-minute game if BGL keep playing like they have currently.
True.
Rogue Flicks going incredibly deep, trying to find Scoobs, but here comes the Cavalry. Loveless, once again, looking for the engage, going to be able to get 2 inside of the Cataclysm immediately. Kane is going to respond with an ultimate down onto the jungle partner. Scoobs has been accessed by Corki, will be able to trade this out, but because of the shutdown going over, this is still gold positive for TCG, and Rogue Flicks getting an extra kill makes this a 2-for-1 in favor of Red Squad right as the Dragon comes up.
Once again, Yarko, the hyper early flag and drag. Yes, Loveless needed to close the gap to get that play off, but I'm not so sure that that play needed to be made. That was incredibly, incredibly bold there. I think you just walk forward, you drive this Genesis squad out of the bot lane, and you take control of the pit like they're doing now. They're not overextending.
Oh
they're
my God.
just walking in as a group, and that's what Loveless needs to be doing here, as Zyke just so strong right now, running down this bot lane like nobody's business. 1 kill, 2 kills, and now the Drake is Blooms despite the early misplay by Loveless.
And you never want to hear a color caster say that a Gwen is insanely strong only 16 minutes into the game, but Zyke has truly hit that power point. 3-0-1 on this champion with the Nashor's Tooth completed, stacking up the Dark Seal. This is going to be a rough one. Scoobs is in a lot of trouble, going to die solo to Jack in the mid lane, which is 100% just an overstep and mistake by Sivir, and this means that Team Cosmic Genesis most likely will get second Shelly. Zyke knows that they're on this, but with Jack coming up, there's just too much defense.
Yeah, no summoner spells, no needlework available. They're just going to get objectives elsewhere on the map, and you can respect what Scoobs was trying to do. That mid turret is just an auto attack from going down, and wanted that first turret gold to really accelerate even further, but right now Jack is kind of the win condition for this Genesis squad. 5 of the 7 kills, holding their own in CS as an item very close to completing that man immune as well. If they're going to put their eggs in a basket, it's going to be this Corki.
The problem is, it isn't like Jack is outstripping Jacobri or Scoobs in regards to income at this point, and you really need the Corki miles ahead of everybody else on the map to be funneled successfully versus BGL, who have that multi-front taking potential. In particular, I'm looking at Gwen becoming a menace of a split pusher that is going to require multiple members of TCG in order to take down, and unfortunately, I don't really see how they're going to be able to provide that kind of defense when you also have to deal with the fact that the Tristana is in great shape to be able to really wreck face later on. Rogue Flicks is going to go incredibly deep in this fight. Great hook there from XMB to try to stabilize. Scoobs is just going to blow them up in an instant, though, and here comes Zyke as further coverage, firing off the needlework. Archer in a lot of trouble, followed by Loveless. There's the Q stun from over the wall by Cloudberry, and Zyke will pick it up at the end of the day. And now, Scoobs, you can walk forward and you can take that tier 1.
Yeah, work with your team here seems to be the lesson of the day for Bloom. This feels like a game where they are, as you said at the start of the cast here, goofing around a little bit. They know their position is secure. They know they're going to be in playoffs. So they can have a little bit of fun with it. They can play a little bit more loose. And they are toying with their food a little bit here. I think they could clean up their act and have Genesis completely out of this game by now. But instead, they're just playing it a little fun. They're letting Genesis get wins that they shouldn't be. But at the end of the day, we're still seeing the brilliance and the reason that this squad is second only to Dorado Mew.
And I struggle to believe that BGL are not in full control of this game. They are up about 7,000 gold, 6,500 gold at the 18-minute mark. This is great setup for anything to come in the future. Baron Nashor very quickly taken by the likes of this team with the Gwen, with the Tristana, with the Sivir. And I think that TCG really just need a miracle to come back in this one, which, given that we're saying that Blue Squad is playing loosey-goosey, does not bode well for this best of 3.
No, absolutely not. But the problem with playing loose is you start to slip because you think, yeah, I can continue to play loose. I can play this game freely. And you keep playing free. And suddenly the enemy squad in game 2, they're not as far behind as they were when you started playing free in game 1. And you play loose early and you start losing advantages instead of gaining them in the early game, and you give them a window in, and by the time you realize it, the series is tied 1-1 and you actually have your back against the wall in game 3.
Yeah, we've seen plenty of 4 funds in the second game, but Bloom Gaming Lotus for this first round, the one that we are able to observe as it currently happens, is totally going their way. That is going to be another kill picked up by the Tristana, and now there's zero response to the split push. Corky's going to have to get back over here in order to stop the take of the tier 2, but as Red Squad gets pulled to the bot side, Bloom Gaming Lotus are well set up to continue to push mid as well, and there's a chance that Baron Nash, or if multiple members go down, to try to deal with the mid laner.
Oh, absolutely. I don't even think that they need to wait for multiple members to be down. They just have to wait for Rogueflix to step up like this and take too much damage, already down to about 1,000 health. They just have the numbers right now. They can hit them with their wallets. 4-0-2, 5-1-2, 5-2-3. These are champions that hurt.
And right there, we saw a little bit of the issue that comes with TCG's composition. They need to coordinate better when they want to go in and how to dictate fights. Imagine if XMB didn't blow their Q slightly earlier. That rocket grab would have probably gotten a flash, maybe even a kill off of the Kane knockup. That was great by Rogueflix, and they took a lot of damage. Now they had to step back. They had to go heal up off of their camps. And while this is all happening, Jacobri is still trying to push towards that tier 2.
And tier 2 goes down. They didn't commit any resources to trying to bail out Jack and just got zoned off the turret. Jacobri was too much. Now we see Rogueflix coming over, but it's too little too late. Jacobri is going to be able to get out. There are resources here now, and this is going to turn into a 4-on-2 fight at the moment.
Yep, and Rogueflix is trying to get that last blow on top of Jacobri, but flashes are going to be traded. Loveless eventually cleans it up, and more gold over to members of BGL necessary to be that spearhead to make it over to this dragon, make it over to this Baron, means that I'm perfectly fine with Jarvan grabbing that one. TCG now has to deal with every single member of BGL to have a chance. Even Braum at this point in time is going to be difficult for any individual champion to kill, while still being able to provide attention to everybody else. So Jack and Archer, be careful. Even if you think that's going to be an easy pickup of 300, recognize that while you're doing that, you're probably getting shredded by Zyke, Jacobri, and Scoobs.
Yeah, the Braum should be an early pickup, or an easy pickup, which is why he hasn't died once in this 24-minute game. Right? So Cloudberry has done a great job of being that defender and staying alive here. We do see the TPs coming in. All 5 members of Genesis are alive here. They're going to look for a steal, but they don't quite find it.
Package over the wall, though. Jack trying to split the Red Sea will not be able to do so. Loveless going to flash back away from the knockup. Rogueflix goes deep, but already the Tristana picking up the double kill, getting the resets going, means that now Archer is the last one left alive, and we see a full-on ace. 4-1, Baron Nashor picked up. This game is well and truly over. We're passing the 12K milestone in favor of BGL regarding gold, and Team Cosmic Genesis basically just lives for as long as their towers survive.
Yeah, can you imagine that fight, Nyarko, if there wasn't a 10,000 gold lead at the start of it? Rogueflix got a huge 3-man knockup on all of the major carries. But because there was no gold, there was no damage in this Genesis squad, they couldn't follow up, they couldn't make anything of it. The health bars were blinking red, Loveless was dead, and Archer was free on the backside. If they had had enough damage to get a couple of more stacks to get excited, that could have been a reverse sweep there by Archer, but they just didn't have the numbers, they didn't have the gold, because they've been put so far behind. Really, really unfortunate for Genesis. If they hadn't made so many mistakes, they could have had their window there.
Well, I think that a BGL stan would tell you all that if BGL wasn't up as much gold as they were, they probably wouldn't have gone for that fight. And so Team Cosmic Genesis still wouldn't get the opportunity to access kills or anything like that. But no, your point's well taken here. There's just nothing that you can do when you're this far behind in order to try to stabilize this game. This is unfortunately done so, as Thousand Eyes yesterday was so fond of saying, we're basically just waiting for the end to come. I just don't know how exactly things are going to fall apart one last time for TCG.
I mean, at this point, you can just about Nayram it, pick a lane, force your way through. I don't think Genesis can hold, and that's exactly what they're doing. 4 members here in the bot side. Jacobri being hyper-aggressive, has no fear of XMB here, just blows them up. And I think this is the beginning of the end here. 3 members will not be able to stop the Baron push, and we can already see Bloom just walking in, walking forward. This is their base, this is their turf. Genesis just isn't fully aware of it yet.
I will say that BGL don't have the greatest engage in the world, and Team Cosmic Genesis can play the turtle really well. They have solid wave clear. They have the ability to zone members out. Cloudberry has to rely on things like landing that Glacial Fissure to be able to start off the end of this match, but unfortunately, they won't be able to land that R. At the same time, if BGL are getting everything on the map, they're going to crack open every inhibitor, get every tower, and there's only so much you can do against baroned up super minion waves crashing into your Nexus turrets. So, still credit for sure to BGL on this one, but I don't know if it's going to end on this push. It might take another one.
Yeah, we are going to see the Baron fall off here in just about 10 seconds, so
Oh,
might
Hook.
actually have bought enough time. Psyche is gone. That's a 50-second death timer here. That's not nothing.
Yep. And so Team Cosmic Genesis are going to buy themselves a little bit of breathing room. The problem is their base is destroyed and down so much gold. They will do nothing except for absorb super minion waves until BGL deems them worthy of yet another push.
Yeah, it's 8 turrets to 2, Nyarko. It is a Baron to nothing. It is 2 Drakes to 1. All of the objectives, it feels like, going to Bloom. This has been far from a perfect game, as we've mentioned a couple of times. But now that they've gotten to this point where it's time to close it out, they're playing a lot more intelligently. And the small mistakes, like we saw in the early game, except for like getting caught a little bit there, they're starting to clean up. We're starting to see a whole lot less of them. So Bloom will not give an inch here to Genesis to get back into this.
And so now BGL are just going to reset, cash out their massive gold lead. They're probably even going to move up to Soul Point because why not at this point in time, right? Just take it slowly, try to find the mistake from TCG. The worst thing that you can do is just throw yourself headfirst into the Nexus turrets without taking down someone from Red Squad first, because that is going to be the most even and most hopeful fight that Team Cosmic Genesis is going to be getting all game. And so therefore, you want to slowly pick off all of these objectives that Team Cosmic Genesis will view as ever more pressing to contest, and eventually they're going to have to step up, or this is just going to be a slow chokedown.
It's so difficult to contest, though, when Jack is your strongest member at 3 items, and you look down the other side, Zyke nearing 3 items, Loveless at 2 items, Jacobri at 4 items, Scoobs just a hair away from 4 items. Every member is just so much categorically stronger that even with the extra 2 bodies of those Nexus turrets, you still have to find the perfect fight if you're Genesis. You can't make any mistakes. You can't engage a moment too soon.
All right, well, as we probably are moving towards that last push with very little else to talk about, Alls, we're going to play one of my favorite mini games here.
Oh
Between the
boy.
two teams, which of these 5 members has a better blunt rotation?
Uh, uh, gosh.
I think that it has to be Bloom Gaming Lotus, right? Even though Jarvan is going to be a miserable stick in the mud, you got Braum, you got Tristana. Gwen, I imagine, would be hilarious to watch get high, given that she hasn't experienced that much of the world to begin with. Meanwhile, on the other side, you're in grievous danger of bodily harm from Archer playing that Jinx. XMB on Blitzcrank, not going to be able to get high to begin with, and I imagine that Kane would just murder you straight up.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think that makes sense. We do have a fight here. Loveless got popped very early, falling back into that same issue of going in too soon, but is the only one falling. 2 are dead for Genesis. Jack will soon follow, and with their strongest member down, it's just up to Archer here, and I think the bowstring has snapped. There's nothing left for Genesis. The mid Nexus, or the mid inhibitor rather, falls again here, Nyarko, and I think the clock has run out.
Yeah, you try to hand Kane a boof and he will put a scythe through you. The problem is, Rogue Flicks not at all able to do the same in the course of this game. BGL utterly dominate Team Cosmic Genesis in order to walk home game number 1. They're even going to take the last inhibitor just to make a statement here. Jacobri is able to melt through these Nexus turrets, and Rogue Flicks is going to try to survive for one last delayed play around this Nexus, but it's too little too late. The crystal is cracked, and there's the end of the round.
25 to 10, Nyarko. Not the cleanest game considering the skill disparity between these squads, but Bloom playing with their food a little, willing to let this game go a little bit longer just to have a little bit of fun with it. And Genesis, their hopes of finding a way into the playoffs here, feels like they're slipping away a little bit.
A little bit. I mean, if there was an indictment of how long they're going to last in playoffs, alls, it's going to be this one. So perhaps
Yeah.
this will be a merciful end to their time in the BOL Platinum division. But there is always a chance that they will be able to bring it back. That could have just been them trying to warm up. Perhaps BGL will for fun it. There's ways to come back, but it is going to be tough. I think we should probably give them a little bit of space, a little bit of time for them to figure out what the next move is going to be. And
Mm.
therefore, let's throw it over to a quick break. We will return with the second draft of the night. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Blue Otter League Platinum Division. We are about to dive into the second draft of the night between Team Cosmic Genesis and Bloom Gaming Lotus. And I don't want to be a pessimist here, although I think it is my base disposition. I'm a little bit worried this is going to be our last draft of the night as well. Team Cosmic Genesis looked like they had zero answer to the power of BGL early, and that was from a team composition that had no right getting as far ahead at the 15-minute mark as they did.
No, that was absolutely a scaling comp from Lotus there. They should not have been able to get any leads. And admittedly, it was precipitated by a hardware issue on the side of Genesis. And you have to give a little bit of awareness to that. But that was only in the top lane. That doesn't account for the misplays in bot, the overextensions in mid, the inability of the jungle to get anything going. And for Genesis here, yeah, you knew you were coming in facing a much better team than you in terms of record and in terms of apparent skill. But I really would have expected them to at least have some kind of traction here. It felt like their wheels were just spinning in place.
Team Cosmic Genesis is going to be able to get what Jacobri was on in game number one with that Tristana. I think that was one of the crucial champions that really got BGL ahead because the goal that started coming through from the towers was backbreaking. The priority from the wave push in that mid lane meant that they were able to build off of plays made by Loveless or Cloudberry. So I'm a little bit worried if BGL is just going to completely reshuffle their identity. This could be that for funny angle that I always talk about where all of a sudden a team from very far behind in game number one manages to bring us to game number three. BGL are going to go kind of off meta here by getting the Misfortune, but they will combo it with a Rel who has flex potential into the jungle.
Yeah, Misfortune Rel is a great combo. The Magnet Storm holding champions inside that bullet time to make sure that they take the full duration of it. However, I think you hit the nail on the head with the for fun here because neither of these champs in the top 10 of Scoobs or Cloudberry here. I think Bloom is kind of toying around with some alternatives, seeing what they can do with a squad that they think they're better than. And while they definitely have the skills to back it up, if they stretch a little bit too far, if they cook for a little bit too long, they might force themselves into a game 3 here.
Orianna is such a good champion, though, Alls, and Bloom Gaming Lotus will be able to make the most of it. I think that one of the things that their champion roster was really missing in game number one was the ability to find engages and end games quickly. Now they have that. Either Rel Crashdown or Orianna Shockwave is going to be backbreaking, and when you combo all of that lockdown and the fact that that lockdown works so well with Misfortune, there are ways that BGL are able to end team fights in an instant.
Absolutely here. I mean, the issue is that Alistair exists, right? You pop the Unbreakable Will and you can start to dismantle some of that combo. But that's one champion. That's one player who a lot of that impetus is on. And frankly, we didn't see XMB really clicking on all cylinders in game one. They missed a lot of hooks. They used their hooks too early. They weren't in sync with the rest of their team. Alistair requires the team follow up in very much the same way as Blitzcrank does. It requires you to be on that same page. So I'm worried that despite that ability to get out from under some of this, it's not going to matter.
One thing I will note here is that it's very interesting that BGL is still going to put Cloudberry onto Braum when they've already been able to kind of swerve the Alistar matchup by putting Rel into the jungle. Wouldn't you just want to go for some kind of poke there in the bot side of the map to really shut down that lane in total? And because you already have that Rel in favorable matchups elsewhere, it just kind of feels that you can windmill slam that 2v2 to the point where what looks like to be the Tristana in the bot side of the map won't be able to do a whole lot.
Yeah, I would have been perfectly fine here with a Karma, a Zyra. Zyra, sneaky good recently, has had a lot of power put back into her. I think it would be great into an Alistair Tristana who want to be going in, have very telegraphed motion, and can be locked down very well by the whip finds. So the Braum does feel like a bit of a weird choice here, but if that's what Cloudberry's most comfortable on, and if they think that it's going to offer the most, and it will offer quite a bit into Tristana, Graves, Corki, so it's understandable here after seeing the rest of what Genesis chose, but you're right, I think there were better options on the table.
Aurelia at the end, one of the spicy matchups I was hoping to see coming out of BGL. And I don't think that's one that pushes the needle too far in the direction of them for funding it. This is a champion that can easily obliterate Team Cosmic Genesis if they're not careful. That being said, Vanguard's edge isn't great into a lot of these picks. I think that Tristana will be able to get away from it relatively easily. Same kind of thing with the Alistar. Vladimir also very good at playing avoidantly, but it is going to have that ability to really disrupt team fights yet again and be that secondary means by which to really start attacking squishy members of the team alongside that kind of fantasy combo that we hope to see come out from the Misfortune alongside Rel.
Yeah, I do worry for Bloom now that we see the full draft from Genesis, because this is very much um a kite comp, right? Outside of the Alistair, Tristana with the rocket jump, very capable of running away with the buster shot, able to buy a lot of space for herself. Vladimir with the pool, very safe, very unable to be engaged upon. Graves with the dash, very safe with the collateral damage, can do quite a bit from very far away. Corki with the package, with the Valkyrie, can get very far away. So Bloom, which is so reliant on being in a single space with the Vanguard's Edge, with the bullet time, with the Shockwave, and even the Magnet Storm to a degree, I worry that as long as Genesis plays this right, and that's a big if, admittedly, but if Genesis plays this right, they can avoid ever staying in that choke point.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I do think that TCG have the better draft, don't get me wrong. But for me, it's just hard to really focus upon the team when Bloom Gaming Lotus dictated every facet of game number one.
Yeah, that's true. And at the end of the day, if you have a team that's so much mechanically better, it's hard to put any stock in what the comps looks like. It's like solo queue.
Mm.
Even if you guys pick a perfect 5-man comp, if the enemy ADC is a Masters Smurf, you're going to get stomped. But
Yep.
you still have to consider it, because Bloom, despite the fact that they're not playing as hard as they could be, they still need to make use of this opportunity. This is a chance to prepare for the eventual rematch against Dorado Mew, or to prepare to go into some of the incredibly strong teams from other divisions here in BOL Plat. So there's no reason to rely purely on mechanics when you could be building something more.
Well, no crazy flexes coming out of either side. I wish Corky Bot was playable again, but he certainly does need the mid lane XP in order to scale up. Tristana down here going to, I think, be one of those equilibrium breakers that I want to keep an eye out for. Now, it is going to be hard to engage into a Braum as per usual, but if XMB can outplay this lane, Braum doesn't really have a great matchup in the 2v2, and I think that Graves also has a good chance at being able to counter gank the Rel really well because of their ability to further slow any escape after Rel goes in a crash down with his W.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the problem is Rogueflix was the one who was trying to pull the trigger early and was constantly outmatched by Loveless. So I feel here in my bones that we're going to see similar here. Graves is going to have the faster clear, is going to want to be on the map first, and I think Rel will have the opportunity to get in there after Rogueflix has already used the smokescreen, has already used the dash, and doesn't really have the same opportunities to lock down Loveless as they would in a vacuum.
Okay, well, the teams are locked in, ready to go, and this is going to be a decisive one. Team Cosmic Genesis really need the dub here and now, or their chances of being able to make it to playoffs grow all the more slim, and the outlook is all the more grim. Bloom Gaming Lotus on the cusp of quite the defeat here. If they're able to really just roll through one of these mid-bandwidth teams, they show that they basically don't have to break a sweat for anybody except for the very, very top of the division. So with their spectator delay beginning to count down, I think it's time we throw it over to a quick break. But first, shout outs to Glitch Energy. Also, how about you take this one?
Yeah, this is a game that feels kind of low energy because the outcome seems so guaranteed, which is why this is a perfect time for us to be slamming Glitch Energy. It's a great jitterless blend to make sure that you are at the top of your game. You can use the code BlueOtter at checkout to get a nice 20% off. I tried it. It was absolutely delicious. Unfortunately, when I came back to school, I left my shaker at home, so I don't really have the chance to order anymore, and I'm regretting it because it was incredible. Kept me awake on a lot of long nights, both of gaming and of working. So if you'd like to support Blue Otter and get some energy of your own, go to Glitch, use code Blue Otter, and enjoy. Tell them Narco and I sent you. They'll be real happy to hear it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Alls, for the ad read. Thank you, Glitch Energy, for the sponsorship alongside Coach of IGG. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be right back at you with game number 2 between Team Cosmic Genesis and Bloom Gaming Lotus. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the BOL Platinum Division. Team Cosmic Genesis desperately trying to hold on in this best of 3 versus Bloom Gaming Lotus. And they're going to have to do so off the back of a massive improvement from game number 1, as unfortunately, Bloom Gaming Lotus got control early, never let go of it at all, and that was just a crushing late game. Over 12,000 gold in advantage for this side that is now red. It's just so tough to deal with.
Yeah, and that was off the back of a few mistakes by Bloom. Loveless had quite a few times where they overextended with the flag and drag, went in a bit too deep. Zyke allowed themselves to get picked off a couple of times. Jacobri went too deep, but they came together. They had so much macro control that it was impossible for Genesis to ever make use of any of those mistakes to get things going. So it's going to require some really, really impressive stuff from this TC squad to be able to come anywhere close to approximating a victory in this match.
Archer and XMB, I think, are going to be the focal point of this early game for Team Cosmic Genesis. They have Road Flicks over onto the Graves, who can be a carry in their own right, but really, I want them to try to set up Archer because we've already seen the destructive power of Tristana in the series. That time, though, is from Jacobri. Now, we already have a pretty rough trade for XMB, who can really do nothing level 1 on the Alistar, and they're getting zoned pretty heavily right now by Cloudberry, which means Bloom Gaming Lotus will have that push advantage.
Yeah, thankfully for this squad, they do have the healing innate in Alistar's kit, so after they get this level 2, they're going to have some more health in hand to be able to re-engage here. You can see that healing already popping, but still, the early trades here from Scoobs and Cloudberry, just so much better. They have so much more power, and they're really chunking out quite well. The Tristana having 2 champions to manage makes it so much harder to get that early. Wow, Zyke flashing forward, gets the first blood, but will trade it here. That's only a 1-for-1. Now in the mid lane, though, Jacobri does pick up Jack.
I'm a little bit surprised that Zyke decided to trade for the Vladimir. I think that this is probably good for the Grim to Fire. What is not as good is the fact that Jacobri is just soloing Jack out of nowhere at 2 minutes in.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as good for Grim as you say, Nyarko, because it forced out the TP. Zyke able to walk back, but Grim only has boots off of that, so it's not a real meaningful advantage here, and Grim will never have wave control. We're gonna have to put that on pause because XMB's in a whole lot of trouble. Ignite is down, and XMB's just dead here. Cloudberry picking that one up.
Yeah, XMB, what the hell was that, man? If you want to go for those plays early on the Alistar, you need to flash through the enemy and then headbutt them back towards the tower. You gave Scoobs a free dash out of that engage.
I think it was a misclick because I think he was targeting Cloudberry there, and if you headbutt the Braum back in, that's absolutely a free kill for Archer there. But misclicks cannot be undone, and Archer now in a deep hole compared to Scoobs, down about 2 full waves, down a whole lot of pressure, and boy does it feel like Genesis is even worse off than they were in game 1.
We're moving to about a 1,500 gold advantage for Bloom Gaming. Lotus, Scoobs, and Cloudberry having this push advantage also means that they had a shot to go pincer the Graves with the help of Loveless. Eventually, they decide that it's going to be good to just extract themselves from the situation. Rogue Flix will live to fight another day, but Team Cosmic Genesis need to find a fight soon, and they need to find one that is winning, something that has been very hard in the series so far.
Yeah, Jacobri might be a little bit vulnerable here. Does have the flash, but Orianna not exactly the most mobile of champions. Unfortunately, though, Jack zoned too far away, too low on health. They can't actually pull the trigger there. And Rogueflix feels like game 1 not really able to find any traction with the early ganks.
So in terms of the blunt rotation this time, Alls.
Oh, man. I think I have to go with Bloom again. I feel like Rel is just a huge vibe. I feel like Misfortune's gonna be that person who's always got the good stuff. Yeah, Orianna's gonna be a little bit awkward, but you can't go wrong with Braum.
I feel the problem is that Rel is either a great vibe or is going to be fucking having the worst crisis of her life. You know what I mean? Just sitting there bawling her eyes out. She's been through a lot in her young life, so gotta keep that in mind. That being said, the comparative, yeah, Vladimir's just gonna kill you again. Corki is probably going to end up crashing his flying machine, also has a chance of killing you.
We're gonna have to put that on
in
pause,
the bot lane
probably.
is just going to be able to walk this out, though. There's not enough damage early when Braum is able to get the stand behind me up, so it's tough overall. I feel that TCG aren't able to actually build upon their strengths in this game, unfortunately, and Bloom Gaming Lotus stays stable, up quite a bit of gold.
Yeah, 1500 was achieved at 4.5 minutes, actually 4 minutes even, rather. Still solid here at 5 minutes 30. And this time, I, again, don't know that the scaling advantage is in Genesis' side. Because Orianna scales so well into the late game, Misfortune scales so well as they ramp up that bullet time. Even Zyke on the Aurelia, well, she becomes a true dominant champion with just the Vampiric Scepter. She continues to maintain that dominance, and Vladimir's great in the late game. Gorky's great in the late game. We said the same thing about Trist last game, but it's not better. And that's what Genesis needs if they're going to lose early this hard. They need something that's just categorically better.
Well, Scoobs is alone in this one. Rel coming through, but very slowly because of their crash down form. Misfortune is going to fall to Archer, gets the reset to just walk this out. and I don't think Cloudberry is going to be enough to really threaten a kill onto XMB or anything like that. So that is headed back above water for TCG. They closed the gold gap just a little bit, still 1,000 plus in favor of Red Squad right now. But XMB actually wants to go for something here. But now Chakabri is roamed down, and this is looking a lot worse now for Blue Squad, who immediately get the stun onto the Graves. Crashdown is going to follow through, and here comes the Shockwave, pulling back too. Oh, when it rains, it pours all. Team Cosmic Genesis get the Tristana out, but that is cold comfort as all of a sudden Bloom Gaming Lotus once again just evened that fight back up.
Yeah, an unneeded
No,
misplay there.
no,
No,
oh,
Archer.
no, Archer.
Please tell me Archer survives here. No, Loveless, this is bullying. That's not okay.
And they flash too, so. It's rough, Alls. I don't know what to say, man. The gold gap has extended back out to about 2.8k in favor of Bloom Gaming Lotus. They have total control over this bot side. River, Team Cosmic Genesis have just made questionable play after questionable play, unfortunately. And now, if Jack also dies here, I think this game could well and truly be done at only 7 minutes into it this time.
Yeah, you know, Nyarko, I was going to flame Scoobs for the misplay of being out so far without their support, but then Archer just does that. Jack nearly dies in the mid lane to a very telegraphed roam collapse here. I just don't have words for this. It feels like Genesis repeatedly shooting themselves in the foot here, not taking advantage of the opportunities that Bloom is giving them, and giving so many back.
Yeah, and, you know, unfortunately with Graves on your team, shooting yourself in the foot hurts quite a bit, you know, that's a shotgun. So they really need to be able to up the tempo a little bit. They do manage to get the flash out of Zyke from that play mid, but it's not enough to really put a damper on this Aurelia, who's just going to return back to the top side, fully stack her Q, run down Grim to fire, and maybe force out another flash. There's the stun. Vladimir going to try to just dig their heels in and fight this one out. Zyke taking a tower shot will just have to back off.
Yeah, and without the flash now, is a little bit vulnerable to Roadflix. Is going to have to try and play this out, but I think they might have found Zyke.
Yeah, that's pretty good for Team Cosmic Genesis, and so the forefronting is starting to come to a head here. Bloom Gaming Lotus, you aren't that far ahead just yet, guys. You can chill, wait a little bit longer for those crazy plays to be made.
Worth noting, though, gold lead still 2,500. They're still solidly in the driver's seat. They will lose Rift Herald here in exchange for this early Chemtech. So if Rogueflix can make use of Shelly, really drive ahead, likely Grim to Fire here, they might be able to play through the Vladimir, who's already got a plate down as a result of Zyke's early roams. But it still feels like there is a huge mountain for this TC squad to climb before they actually feel like they can look at victory and say this is something we can grab.
Yeah, Team Cosmic Genesis has gotten 2 plates in the top side. That is going to be ripe target for the takedown with Rift Herald, but they're going to need to get another successful gank onto Zyke, who now has the Vanguard's edge back up. Good call by Rogueflix trying to get here into the mid lane. Chakobri will have to respect flash this out. Immediately swings right back around, though. They know that Jack doesn't have the burst damage just yet, especially with Shockwave available, so they will just stabilize at their tower.
Yeah, not quite sure that Shockwave was strictly necessary if Chakobri wasn't going back in. I think they had gotten out just fine. But gives them a little bit of a health advantage here. They can push in with the rest of the team, drive Rogueflix out of the jungle, and try and slow down this gank roll from the Graves, who has kind of found a little bit of momentum now. We talked about Rogueflix struggling, but if they can find more like they did on Zyke, like they nearly found on Chakobri, they'll be in a much better position moving forward.
Cloudberry just going to use their E to defend against an approach from XMB. Archer sees their angle, tries to hop onto the backline. Chakobri will just be able to walk backwards. Cloudberry yet again just tanking magnificently. Scoops from over the wall, uses their bullet time early to repel an initial advance from TCG, and now Cloudberry could go back on the offensive once again. Loveless with the full health bar is going to help run down the enemy team. XMB fully ignored by the Rel as they want to get Rogueflix down. Crash under the tower, double kill now for the Misfortune. And
Zyke is behind.
Mightily as Zyke looks for the flank of a lifetime, hits Archer with the Vanguard's edge, immediately blows them up, and Jack is soon to fall as well. Zyke even able to make it out from under the tier 2 tower with the help of Cloudberry, who knows their limits beautifully on the Braum.
Hey, Slayer, this is the clip. Right there. That's it. That's all that needs to be said. That was beautiful.
Is Slayer really slumming it with BOL Platinum Division play?
I'm pretty sure I saw a gold league in week 2, so
I
I'd hope so.
Slayer, buddy, raise your standards, man.
Hey, come on, we're casting this. This is the
Hey,
high
we're casting
stakes.
here. Sorry, my mind has completely melted.
I mean, it's understandable. It's 10-3. It's a 4,500 gold lead at less than 12 minutes here, Nyarko. Yeah, there are some points of relative power. This Vladimir isn't as far behind as you would expect into a champion like Aurelia, but he's just dead again, so what does it matter?
All right. Well, the Vladimir being dead yet again certainly is no great shakes for the side of Team Cosmic Genesis, as they are going to try to make something happen in the bot side, and they kind of assume Vlad's not going to be super powerful right now. Giving more gold over to Zyke, certainly not a great thing, but this could be an angle to cross map, look for something with the Rift Herald. At the very least, they're going to grab plates prior to them falling at the 14-minute mark, but they cannot take down the tower itself, and therefore Scoobs will be able to walk back up with the help of Cloudberry.
Yeah, they have to be careful about not overstaying here. The Orianna looking to roam down, Loveless in the area. So very intelligently they back out, actually looking to set a trap here. This is nice proactive play from Genesis, despite being so far down and so far out of this game. They're continuing to try and work for it, and I respect that from them.
Oh dear, Grim, I don't think they were able to go over there anymore. This is a great Hex Flash setup from XMB, though. Scoob split away from Cloudberry, gonna be shut down through the collateral damage from the Graves. That's smart, but the problem is, Grim is now pushed so far back that Zyke has total control of this lane and wave.
Actually has to be a little bit careful here. The Blade of the Ruined King on cooldown. The lifesteal from that isn't necessarily going to
Oh,
be
they're
enough.
going in.
Even with the Q, they miss the E
Oh,
as well.
Lord.
Grim gets this for free.
Okay, never mind. Team Cosmic Genesis, they have some breathing room because Bloom Gaming Lotus wants to forfun it again. Loveless, though, on the wraparound, looking for a flanky spanky versus XMB and Archer. Now, Cloudberry's the one on split duty, forcing the Tristana back towards the tower. Jacoby gets the kill.
That was so disrespectful from Archer. They're letting Cloudberry auto-attack 3 times to pop the Braum passive. How do you not jump over that wall at the first sign of the Winner's Bite hitting you? Throwing away all of the momentum that Genesis had just picked up with the kill onto Scoobs, with the kill by Grim. Just, it feels like a waste.
Yeah, and the gold lead hasn't really budged. It's shrunk slightly, so Team Cosmic Genesis can be happy about that fact, but Bloom Gaming Lotus is still very much in a position where I'd be calling the game nearly over if they lose anything else prior to the Baron Nashor take. And unfortunately, with the amount of priority that BGL have, there's a chance that they're going to be able to go for Dragon on Dragon and just make this a very tough mid to late game for Cosmic Genesis. Scoob is able to just walk out of this early usage of the package as well. I don't know what Jack was thinking there.
I think they saw a small window where Cloudberry wasn't in the area. Scoobs has no flash, so you can't really be safe on that misfortune at any point. And it does drive them back a little bit. It gives them space to try and force this dragon, but I don't think they have the numbers. The Shockwave not available, but there's plenty of opportunities yet for this Bloom squad to find the engage. XMB's already dead. The damage is so high from this Bloom squad. 2 are dead. The bullet time used just to find Rogue Flicks there. It's Jack all alone here at the end. They won't even get a chance to respond. That's a 4 for 0 here, Nyarko. 5-0-6 on this Orianna. It is 16-5. And if it wasn't against the bylaws of BOL, I would be throwing up the FF vote right now if I was TC Genesis.
Is it actually against the bylaws?
I think it is. I think you get a slap on the wrist for it.
Okay, well, slap on the wrist. I think that Team Cosmic Genesis are getting smacked anyway, so, you know, think about it, fellas. That being said, with Zyke taking down the tier 1 tower topside, Grim Defier is just going to have to respect their Aurelia once again trying to proxy a wave. Rogue is up here to hopefully lock this champion down, and honestly, this Vladimir is starting to do well in these 1v1s. There is a cleanup, but it comes after 4 members fall bot. Bloom Gaming Lotus are up another dragon, and even though Aurelia at this point is full tilt running it down, I don't think it matters at all.
No, Zyke definitely playing a lot too greedy. Just feels like they have the advantage after getting that Bork so early, but you can't play like that. It's really disrespectful. And good on Grim for continuing to make use of it here, continuing to try and build some kind of advantage. And yeah, they're down 40 CS, but they're continuing to get gold. They're not too far behind in items. They're going to get a nice little buy off of this next back. As you say, though, it doesn't matter. It's not enough. It's something for Zyke to clean up moving forward, but it's not going to kill them. Scoobs, however, is dead again. Another engage from XMB popping off correctly here. Archer might go down to Cloudberry, but just barely able to rocket jump away.
All right, Gold Gap is closing, but Loveless has found another full tilt angle to try to jump on top of Rogueflix, gets the stun off of the Q, and with Zyke having to chase them down, there's a shot that this is going to be a double-double for their Rally to get right back into this one. Jack now all alone, using their flash to be able to get into their own jungle, but Loveless is still on the prowl, just going to clear out this ward. It looks like reset. They don't want to go too deep.
Yeah, it's smart to not overextend. It's something that Zyke could learn from, and it's something that Loveless had to learn in game one. You gotta be aware of where your team is, even when you're ahead, because there is plenty of power on this squad yet. That being said, Bloom, in theory, has to be aware of the Corki timer. The Triforce has been completed. The Muramana, at least the tier is fully stacked, so as soon as there's enough gold there, that'll be completed as well. Like, the power points for Genesis are not nothing.
Chemo Plague on top of Jacobri, but Grim Defier is going incredibly low. Has to try to flash forward to go for the engage, but Jacobri has that final killing blow. A solo into the bottom side of the map, but Team Cosmic Genesis managed to trade that for the tower that Grim Defier got, so still not the worst thing in the world. And I will say, alls, we have spent the past 10 minutes kind of twiddling our thumbs on Bloom Gaming Lotus's side. They haven't grown the gold substantially in a while now, and that could bite them a little bit. Corki and Vladimir do go over the top of basically anything that BGL throw their way.
Yeah, especially Grim is who you need to be concerned of right now. Sitting very close to that 2-item mark, and as we saw there, can just about go toe-to-toe with Jacobri. It was within an auto attack here of that Orianna going down. When your strongest member loses to somebody who was getting bullied that hard in lane, you have to start thinking about, all right, it's time to quit with the mistakes. It's time to quit joking around. Let's actually close this game out. Play this like we are the number 2 squad in our division.
I'm actually
Here goes
interested to
Zyke
see if
again.
Proven Defier could make this happen. I don't think that they have any damage without a Hemo Plague available, so they will just have to sink back into the Sanguine pool. And the amount of health they lost there does mean that Zyke will be able to split push again. This is good setup with a minute to go before the Baron Nashor, where BGL could start besieging this tier 2 tower. Zyke might just get the solo kill. Oh, lordy. So now TCG have to start splitting away from the utter domination of their own jungle by BGL in order to answer this Aurelia, or they're going to be losing so much.
Yeah, you see 2 members pulled down there. The Tristana will be the only one to answer now, but it's going to be too late. That turret's going to be down before Archer gets there. And it's very baffling to me that the ADC, who's down 4 levels on Zyke, is responding. Yes, even if the Aurelia's down to the 3rd health, you can't be that disrespectful. Zyke could have potentially turned that around, but a beautiful 4-man pulverize here, and Bloom's in trouble.
Scoob's just gonna run their loops around Rogueflix though, and they're able to pick that up. Cloudberry, Loveless, and company all very low, so Defier is gonna teleport in. They're trying to find something, but a Respect Flash does mean that BGL will be able to extract themselves from that play. Zyke in the mid lane will just have to back off from Archer, who's going to commit everything to try to find a kill, which will be denied. And Bloom Gaming Lotus just come out of that one with 2 for nothing, and a 20 mark now passed does mean that they're up about 6,000 gold, and this is right on time for them to push towards Soul Point as well.
Yeah, they are going to lose a fair bit of map pressure because of the unfortunate reset timing there. But for Genesis, that feels like such a missed opportunity. Yes, you forced them out, but you spent all of that effort. You spent all 4 summoner spells in the bot lane. You spent Grim's TP, and you don't get a single kill with 5 flashing health bars on the red team. That's disastrous here. And now they're going to be contested on this Drake. They don't even have a free shot at it. I think they're going to lose it.
Zyke with Vanguard's Edge still available is immediately going to blow up XMB early in this fight. Jack on the back lane, not able to do a whole lot, even with Rogue trying to buy space for the Corki. The problem is, while this is all happening, the rest of BGL is shredding TCG, and now they finally will busy themselves with the Corki. Rogue going to be chased out of their territory, and now this is going to be a free dragon for Red Team.
I don't even know that they're going to go for the Baron or the Dragon when the Baron is up. It's just Rogueflix available. The health bars are a little bit low, so they're going to have some resets in, but especially if they can pick off Rogue here with enough time left on the death timers, they could have a very free purple worm to put this game away here in Yarko.
I'm kind of surprised that Loveless is going this deep for Graves. Kills at this point are kind of trivial. They should have just gone for that Hextech Drake, which it does look like Aurelia is going to get in time, but I'd just be a little bit worried of a possible steal from the likes of Jack, who are back up with Teleport. It does look like Team Cosmic Genesis don't want to gamble too hard, though, so they will just give this up and hopefully rally the troops for one final battle around this neutral objective in 5 minutes.
Yeah, it just feels doomed for Genesis, though, when you look at the scoreboard and you see that the only members who have died this game are Zyke and Scoobs. Two players who have just been making small mistakes, being a little bit out of position, getting a little bit greedy, but they haven't been able to find the real difference makers. They haven't been able to take out Loveless, the disruptor on the front side of the fights. They haven't been able to take out the true pumping damage of Jacobri and Cloudberry. Protecting everybody, still has not died. 4-0-11, doing great on that Braum. It's so hard to look for those fights when you get so disheartened by all the people that you cannot kill.
And I have to tip my hat specifically to Cloudberry. I mean, this Braum was a pick I was doubting a little bit up against this Alistar, which I thought would just be able to displace it during fights, take away a lot of its utility. But Cloudberry has been getting up to an incredible KDA without even playing super safe. They are definitely trying to put themselves between the rest of Cosmic Genesis and BGL, and they're doing a great job of absorbing pressure and still making it out alive.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to give them mad props for that, especially in the most recent fight moving through the top side of the map where all the health bars were low. Even at that point, Cloudberry was still intercepting projectiles, was still defending the team, was still doing everything that you expect a Braum to do. It's so respectable as a play, and you don't see a lot of love for supports in general, so it feels good to be able to give props in such a big and obvious way for great play.
All right, well, TCG, I think, need to basically just cluster themselves around whatever neutral objectives BGL want to take, and that comes from trying to get your vision line moved up a little bit. So far, because they aren't down too many towers, that has been an okay task for them to undertake. But so far, they also don't really have a way into this topside river without sending everybody in a death ball up there just to protect any individual picks from happening. And BGL currently have that rift set up like a Christmas tree with all the lights, showing them basically exactly the time to go for the big purple worm. If Baron Nashor is taken, all of a sudden you then get into that spiral where the snowball has begun, and BGL will be able to deny any further vision around things crucial like this fourth dragon.
Yeah, and it's going to become so much harder here in the near future for Genesis to keep deathballing and pushing in for vision because the Jack Show is completed on Zyke. With the Wit's End as well, Grim is not going to be able to match Zyke 1-for-1. You're going to need to be sending other members to help out. Likely going to be either Archer or Jack here. But again, that means you don't have resources on the top side. It means you can't contest this Baron vision. And soon you won't be able to contest the Baron at all. So slowly, the walls are closing in. Genesis has to almost try and consider making a force for a play here if they're going to be able to claw this game back.
Now, they do still have scaling on their side, so really close to the Baron Nashor spawn, it's a little bit less valuable for them to try to make a play happen. They really want to instead look for that dragon that is coming up in a minute and a half, because Soul is one of those things that will put your clock so far behind, and I see many games where it's just impossible to ever stay safe enough against especially something like Hextech, which gives you all that extra poke. So right now, it is fine that they are basically just posturing in their own jungle. They have done a good job keeping
Jacobri
BGL
missed
from
this.
taking that. Jacobri in the top side, and I'd actually be troubled. Jack is starting to get that poke, might be able to chase the robot girl down. Shield's going to keep them alive for one more proc and shot, and I actually don't know if Corki now has the space to make a play. It looks like it's going to be up to Graves, rounding the corner using the Hex Gates, but a Valkyrie forward means they aren't even needed.
And that should have never been close. Jacobri had the numbers there to win that fight, but a complete mispositioning of the ball meant that the shockwave completely whiffed onto Jack by about 2 Teemos there, which at that point, when that's down, Corki just has free reign to run you down. Orianna doesn't have anything left in terms of disruption or escape mechanisms, so just an unusual misplay from Jacobri there, it feels like. especially in this game where they've been so
Oh
calculated, so
no.
good. But Zyke is on fire. Rampage now onto the Tristana, looking to find XMB as well. Is currently 1v3 as Grim and Rogue have joined the fight, but just gliding out with that Q. The Aurelia does not care.
And Archer's not going to be up in time for this dragon. That is the worst of both worlds. I love the fact that Team Cosmic Genesis were trying to go for a pick. It looked so damn close, but here comes the cavalry. Loveless crashed down after the stun onto Grim Defier, and now so much damage has been taken away from TCG. Rogue Flick's going to have to use their collateral damage early just to get away from their Aurelia and company. And the dominance in the mid lane speaks to me like BGL will be able to get this dragon without breaking a sweat.
They're in fact going straight for the Baron here, which I absolutely respect. With this Graves not having the flash, not having the collateral damage, there's no way to get into the pit and there's no way to get out. So they're going to try and get the more valuable buff here. It does look like they're going to have to see the Drake as Zyke's getting chased off of that. But with this Baron empowering the split push even further here, I don't know that it particularly matters, Nyarko. I think that at this point, Bloom can just deathball and win.
Yep, and Bloom Gaming Lotus, for as much as they messed around in this game, still showed their dominance. We are right back to where we were in game number 1. A 10k gold lead has been surpassed, no matter it's gotten messier or not. While TCG have done the right thing and they stopped the take of the soul by splitting that on the cross map, I do think that BGL have kind of sacrificed that late game inevitability for a lot of push right now, and that makes sense given that they want this game over with, and I think they very likely will be able to get it over with off of this next push.
Yeah, with so little left on the map to defend, it's just the base left. And I think that, you know, we mentioned that Genesis can kite very well. But when you're stuck in your base, when you don't have anywhere to run, the kiting doesn't matter. So Bloom will be able to just kind of grit their teeth and force their way through the base and take the win here.
Fiery and Loveless going to start the push in the mid lane off in earnest. Aurelia probably just going to be in a side lane once again, but honestly, Nayram could just be the call once again, as there is a chance that with none of the outer turrets left alive, you could be going too deep as a single person trying to move on to inhibitor. Speaking of which, Loveless and Cloudberry are alone for the time being, very deep in enemy territory. Jacobri is going to be distracted by Graves on the far side, but it still looks like with the innate tankiness, the Rel and Braum will just be able to walk this off. And now here comes Scoobs, that damage that's necessary.
Yeah, now they're going to trap these folks in the bot side, allowing Zyke to make use of the split push prowess, chunking through that top turret, down to about a third health already after just one wave. And now we see Tristana Archer rotating over. That means that the pressure back onto the bot side, this back and forth motion is going to slowly tear Genesis apart. Not even slowly, as that bot turret disappears, as does the Tristana. The base is cracked in force.
And there goes the Alistar as well. Zyke is so far ahead of everybody else on the map in regards to XP that Grim Defier can do nothing to stop the take of the inhibitor over here. And there's still a wave for Red Squad to push off of. They might just want to go towards the Nexus turrets here and now, but Aurelia wants to also walk in from the top, and they will be able to kill Grim Defier while doing so with the Vanguard's Edge. There we go. End of the series. Wrap it up in 30 minutes. Bloom Gaming Lotus very rightfully dominate this 2-game round.
Yeah, and if you look at the standings, of course, Nyarko, this isn't much of a surprise, but Genesis, they were fighting throughout the series. They kept in the standings to the point where they could still find their way into a playoff position. So this is a little bit crushing for them that they had a shot and just had it ripped so painfully away from them in just utterly destructive fashion.
And now Team Cosmic Genesis, I don't think are mathematically eliminated, but they're very close to being so all. So we may have to just bid them farewell. This is probably going to be their last time on stream, unless they sneak in at the very low end of the bracket. But it's kind of like what I was talking about before, right? I feel really bad for saying it, but even if they do make it to playoffs, I don't think that it changes the fact that they are going to be out of it in an instant. Bloom Gaming Lotus proves that the top of this division is miles away from the rest of the competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a team that got 2-0'd by Dorado. This team has not lost a game outside of Dorado. while, we can't necessarily compare apples to apples across divisions, if this division has that much power loaded in the top side and other divisions are even remotely similar, it's going to very rapidly come down to the top two teams from each division.
Definitely the case, and this is a pretty competitive division overall. I don't want to understate the fact that BGL are not undefeated. This is not, in fact, their top team. They are still showing so much dominance. They have a loss to Dorado Gaming New, like you were talking about, and that is going to be another top contender in one of the revenge matches that I'm looking forward to once we hit those best of fives.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that rematch if it comes. Of course, we're going to be seeing how seeding shakes out here over next week. We're going to be looking to see how that fits into the bracket, but I would love to see Bloom and Dorado face up again, especially after such a punishing defeat in the regular season. I would hope that Bloom has improved and that they can take Dorado much closer to the edge.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week 7 matchup. It's been a great privilege casting the regular season for you guys here on BOL throughout the Platinum Division. And we are so happy that people are turning out to support every single one of the different divisions and leagues that BOL provides. It's been a wild time. I'm going to be back on tomorrow on Wednesday for Gold. And then I believe you're also going to be able to catch me on Saturday for Diamond. So I'm looking forward to see you guys there for what I believe is also going to be the last best of threes of those respective seasons. So there's a lot more BOL ahead of us. Don't get us wrong. And we're broadcasting basically every day of the week at this point. Shout out to Alls, as always, for being my wonderful compatriot on the cast. Shout out to Caddy for being producer. And shout out to all of you for supporting BOL alongside our sponsors, Coachify GG and Glitch Energy.
It's an absolute blast to be here. Love every moment of it. And as Nyarko said, go ahead, drop that follow. We've got games every single day of the week, from all the way up in BOL Masters on Monday to IBS on Thursdays and everything in between. There's always a game to watch. There's always great talent talking about it and wonderful, wonderful people behind the camera. Everything BOL does is great. So drop that follow, drop some subscriptions, drop some bits, help support the mission here, and we'll see you guys next time.
Oh no, no. Oh no. Yeah. Oh no, no. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Sleepless nights trying to learn how to die in my sleep. 'Cause I don't wanna be the one to wake up without a heartbeat. Trust me, you're gonna love this, stay in your seat. Baby, just tell me you don't love me, and I'll admit defeat. It ain't that deep, 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 deep. No, you know I kill for some of your real feelings. Oh no, it ain't that sweet, 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 sweet. No, just as long as you're